All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Animal House. Well, I guess you may not be watching it in the evening. I'm recording this in the evening. All right. Today is 1/14 of 24, and there's a decent amount going on, but kind of just generalized updates on everything going on. We're working on some new, historical kind of relevance videos like we've done in the past, but today we're just going to kind of discuss the ongoing, Houthi rebels attacking Navy targets in the Strait of Hormuz, the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea. Um, the Houthi rebels have were taken off of the terror watch list, a few years back, and that was a mistake when that happened. Um, there was a lot of back and forth as to why that was. I think it's a mistake. They've been a terrorist organization since they started. Um, and again, with perspective, one group's terrorists is another group's freedom fighters. And I find it hard to believe that anybody is ignorant enough to believe that what they're doing is right. But unfortunately, some people do. So the Houthi rebels have been using Iranian money to use missiles and drones to attack commercial vessels. Their point of doing that is stating that it is because they're trying to, financially hurt the Israel-Palestine conflict, because the Houthis are going to be Muslim terrorists, and Iran is obviously a Muslim country, and Palestine or Palestinians are Muslim people, and there's a lot of Palestinians that are part of various different terror organizations, more locally based to quote unquote Palestine. And so you have the attack that happened in early October against Israel from the Palestinians to the Israelis. The Israelis then, attacked back, defending themselves. So therefore, they've, been, at war. Today is now going to mark, I believe, the 100th day um, of fighting, or at least in the last couple of days has been the 100th day of fighting between Israel and Palestine. So, in saying all that, just to kind of give you an understanding of why the American military has gotten involved, the British military has gotten involved running airstrikes into the I guess western part of Yemen, is because that's what the Houthi dominated area. They kind of control. I think it's like 70% of that western part of Yemen that's really close to the very narrow canal. And that's where they've done most of these attacks on the boats from, on the commercial vessels from. And then they've been firing, rockets and missiles and drones kind of basically all over their coastline, um, because it's a natural choke point. So that's why they're doing that. But they're wanting to do this because 80% of sea trade goes through the Suez Canal, which is at the very northernmost part of that body of water right there at the Gulf of Aden, Strait of Hormuz. It goes up into the Suez Canal at Egypt. You have 10% of the global oil trade that goes through that area, 8% of the natural gas that goes through that area. And so, four major shipping companies have already pulled out of shipping through that area. Now they're having to send all their shipping down around the southernmost part of the African continent and go back up, which that adds, thousands upon thousands of miles to the trip, and a lot of money, because you have to have extra sailors, extra fuel, extra time, extra insurance, because the weather down on that southernmost point is extremely, extremely rough. So it makes it a lot more difficult to navigate those waterways. So, in saying all that, that's kind of why this is such a big deal. And I mean, if you should learn anything from history, especially when it comes to the American government, is you don't ever fuck with America's boats. You just don't do it. I mean, any time in history that anybody has ever messed with America's boats, they've almost immediately gotten attacked back. I mean, there's been the bombings of barracks, there's been bombings of, government buildings, there's been attacks on military bases, there's been kidnapping of troops, there's been kidnapping of civilians. All that stuff can almost unanimously, at least at first, get, kind of argued away with, politicking. But man, as soon as somebody messes with the United States boats, it is almost immediately gloves off, and here it goes. It's almost funny, and as an American, I do find it kind of humorous that that's what it takes. You can attack troops, you can attack buildings, you can attack bases, you can attack barracks, all that stuff. The government will be more understanding of it. Man, you touch those boats, and it's gloves off, and it's on. So, but this doesn't just affect the Americans. This affects the global economy. And so I think it's very short-sighted for these Muslim terrorists to, be like, oh, we're going to attack these ships. Now they're saying that they're attacking American and British ships and Israeli ships, and they definitely have not been. So the UK has been flying ships out of, their air bases that are, in the Cyprus area. And then obviously the United States Navy has, aircraft carriers everywhere. And they, I think it's the Fifth Fleet that is currently in that area. So you're going to have upwards of, 30 planes and helicopters on an aircraft carrier, and then all the support ships that go along with that. And that's, I think, anywhere from 13 to 27 different submarines, boats, and things like that. And then all the various, Navy personnel, Marine personnel, pilots, rockets, missiles, Tomahawk warheads, and all that stuff, So this might end up being warheads on foreheads here pretty quick. So, we've got to be very, very careful with how this plays out, because now this is starting to affect Saudi Arabia. It's starting to affect, Qatar. It's starting to affect all these different places, because it's causing a lot of these relationships in this very uneasy area of the Middle East to start getting strained. So this could cause a far larger issue. And then the other thing I think is probably something interesting to point out right now is, the protesting, the pro-Palestinian protesting. You have a bunch of protesting going on in almost all major cities in North America, and they keep saying the same nonsense, that it's all mostly peaceful. You watch any videos of it, it's not mostly peaceful. You're seeing, attacks of, Palestinian supporters attacking, random people, blocking off tunnels in New York, causing traffic backs up, blocking off bridges, having traffic back up. And this is just turning people away from your cause. You're not having people go, oh, you made my trip to work worse than it already is, and so I'm going to be a supporter of your cause. That's just not what's going to happen. You had this massive protest for the New Year's Eve celebrations. You had a massive protest out in front of the White House, and they were shaking the fence. People had crawled over the fence, and tried to run across, the White House lawn. None of this is going to work out in your favor. But again, all these leftist doughheads haven't done anything about it. They're setting a precedence of weakness, and it's only going to cause things to get worse, because now you're starting to see normal, regular people fighting back. They're not even trying to think about being understanding or think about fucking finding common ground. They're immediately taking this as a sign of aggression, and they're fighting back. So you're seeing a lot more fist fights, a lot more violent, interactions and things like that. And I've said this 1,000 times, and I'll continue saying it. If that pendulum swings too far to the left, when it comes crashing back, it's going to get nasty. I think people need to wake up. And the other thing that I think is kind of comical is, again, this Fanni Willis, district attorney, that, she's all in hot water right now again, because supposedly she had an intimate relationship with somebody that she put in charge of part of the investigation with Donald Trump. And there's people putting out, proof or making accusations, and she stayed relatively silent about it for quite a while. And then there's a video of her, excuse me, going around on Twitter right now of her addressing this inside an all-black church in Atlanta. And she's trying to make it sound like, oh, she's a flawed person, but following God is a flawed this and a flawed that, and it just sounds to me very disingenuous. And she's trying to use religion and people's belief in religion to try to make her ill intent and her knowing she's doing evil shit less so. And I just think that's very intellectually dishonest. And if you're a believer in religion, I think that somebody using something that you believe so strongly in to try to lessen their ill intent, I think that's just horrific. So anyways, that's the update for right now. We're going to be dropping some more stuff here pretty soon. A couple new videos. I just put a YouTube channel together. I'm not going to put a lot of content out there, but I'm going to put a little bit. But X and Rumble are still the primaries. We're doing some modifications to the studio here at the Animal House headquarters. So we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, everybody.